Hubbard.
Okay. So I will call this meeting to order. This is the special city council meeting and special closed session meeting. And it is just after 12:30 on Friday, Friday, July 10, 2020. May we please have a roll call?
Yes, the record will show that all members of the city council are present with the exception of Councilmember Hubbard.
Okay, thank you. So we have the first item is temporary suspension of local permit restrictions on California State Department of Alcohol Beverage Control licensed alcohol serving establishments and municipal code provisions authorizing alcohol service in the right of way subject to conditions. So why don't we take the public comments and then we can have the staff report.
Okay, so this is regarding the open meeting agenda item number 1. The first letter is, Dear Honorable Mayor and esteemed City Council members, as an organization which represents local restaurants and retail establishments in Cardiff, we fully support any resolution which would provide opportunities for our local restaurants to be able to do business in a safe and meaningful way during this pandemic. Allowing restaurants to serve alcohol in the public right-of-way, subject to conditions, would help alleviate the economic strain our restaurants are facing. We wholeheartedly hope you will consider supporting this resolution. Sincerely, Allison Wilczkowski, Cardiff 101 Main Street. This one is from Jeremy Cron. Strong support. These people have poured their life force into these ventures. They need help, and I saw it and heard it today directly from several of them. There is anxiety. Last email of the day, I promise, and that was from Jeremy Cron. This one is from the Encinitas Chamber of Commerce. Dear members of Encinitas City Council, on behalf of our members and community, the Encinitas Chamber of Commerce supports the approval of resolution number 2020-60. With the passing of this resolution, our alcohol serving restaurants can provide the same services to their diners outdoors that they were able to provide indoors. They are already suffering from the effects of downscaling their operations and the recent expenses incurred to abide by the many changing virus restrictions. They need the added boost with the alcohol sales and potential diners to keep their businesses afloat during these trying times. We thank you for your consideration and encourage you vote to approve resolution number 2020-60. Yours truly, Sherry Yardley, Interim CEO, Encinitas Chamber of Commerce and Visitor Center. And then the last email is, Dear City Council, I am writing to let you know that E101 is in support of alcohol being served outside during COVID. Thank you very much for your work to help our downtown businesses during this unprecedented time. Signed, Chris Buchanan, VP President E101. And that concludes comments.
Okay, thank you. Let's go ahead and have a staff report, staff report.
Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council members, Roy Sapal, Assistant Director of Development Services. What's before you tonight or today, this afternoon, is a resolution to suspend our municipal code regulations that prohibits services of alcohol in the public right of way, as well as suspending local permit restrictions as certain conditional use permits contain specific conditions that prohibits alcohol service in the public right of way. As you're aware, the governor, as well as the county, recently issued directives and orders that prohibits and require the closure of indoor services for restaurants and other alcohol serving establishments. This creates an economic burden on our businesses. In addition, some of our restaurants and other alcohol services establishments do not have the benefit of having on-site areas to accommodate outdoor services. So what we're proposing today is a resolution for City Council to consider the suspension of the municipal code restrictions on alcohol service in the public right-of-way, as well as our conditional use permits conditions to allow restaurants and other alcohol service establishments with key restrictions and conditions to serve alcohol in the public right-of-way. This is to facilitate business continuity for those establishments, as well as supporting the economy right now based on the current restrictions and orders that was given by the governor and the county. That concludes my presentation. Our final recommendation is for the council to adopt resolution 2020-60. I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Could you just address the recent emails about more restaurants wanting to be in the right of way and whether we can allow that? Because it seems as if that's being limited to a very small area, and there are other restaurants outside of that area.
Yeah, so in maybe perhaps the confusion is the city's shared street program that currently facilitates the allowance of dining in the public right of way. However, there is a process that is available to anyone, any business, restaurant, to submit a request to occupy the public right of way, whether it's a sidewalk or on-street parking or other parkways, areas within the public right of way for dining purposes. So that is available to all businesses. They just have to go through a temporary encroachment permit process in order to for the city to analyze and authorize the use of the public right of way.
Okay. I mean, I think we need to get this out, and we need to make this possible for businesses that are just on the brink. So hopefully, I mean, we're getting emails that clearly businesses don't know about this. So hopefully, I'm going to go to my colleagues who all have their hands up, but I think this is an area that needs attention. Oh, there's Councilmember Hubbard.
I give up, guys. I can't get whatever numbers they gave me. I cannot pull them up on my computer.
Well, you're in.
I'm in. So I'm doing it on my phone, which is going to die here in a minute. So, but I'm in for now, and I'll plug in.
Okay. Okay. Councilmember, Deputy Mayor Hinsey.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, this has been, I think, just hard for businesses to understand, because we allowed the dining in the right of way, but now we're trying to catch up the ordinance so that we would be able to allow the alcohol service in the right of way too. And I think that it's pretty clear how that would play out in the shared streets pilot there in downtown Encinitas. But could you walk through some examples of maybe how a business in Cardiff would take advantage of this, or a business in Lucadia where there's still, 2 lanes for traffic and still parking required?
So for any business that does not benefit from the shared street program, they would submit a plan to the city on what areas of the city's right of way that they're wanting to occupy. And through that process, the city will analyze to ensure that public safety concerns and health and welfare are being maintained, and to ensure that it also complies with all of ABC guidelines as well as our ADA requirements. So there is that process that is available for any business to submit an application request, and the city will just analyze and review and to ensure that all those standard conditions are met before we authorize it. But there is a process that's available.
So for example, in Cardiff there, just using Fish 101 as an example, would they be able to go into Carpentier Parkway and use that as part of the city's right of way, or would that involve NCTD and bringing in another agency?
So so the process is available. However, through that process, they will have to acquire authorization from, that's one of the requirements of the application, is to secure landlord approval or property owner approval. So they would have to secure that from NCTD if they're requesting to occupy NCTD right away.
Deputy Mayor Hinsey?
Yes.
And Council, if I can address that, we actually did get a hold of NCTD. That request came in through Cardiff 101 and Fish 101. We did talk to NCTD, and they are allowed to put picnic tables out there. So we did receive authorization for them to put dining tables out there.
Okay, but then they would need to give the initial or the additional approval for alcohol service there as well.
Yeah, they would, right. But we did get NCTD permission to go ahead and put picnic tables in that area.
Okay, so, being out there and talking to some of the businesses, I'm just hoping that there will be some effort where they submit a plan and they think that that's the best thing for their business, but there's some roadblocks for that specific plan, will there be some effort from the city staff to coach them to come up with a plan that would be a little more streamlined for them to actually implement?
Yes.
Hold on, before you answer that,
Hang on.
could I ask to have authority as the co-host so that I can mute and put people's hands down and manage the meeting here?
I'm trying to get on the call.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, guys. I finally was just trying to get hooked in here.
No, it's okay. Okay, so let's go to, if you were able to hear Councilmember Hinsey's question, if you could go ahead and answer that, Roy.
Yeah, our goal and objective is to streamline this process as much as we can, as best as we can, to support and facilitate the continuity of businesses for those alcohol serving establishments. So if if the plan that they submit does not meet certain safety and health conditions and requirements, it is our objective and goal to work with the businesses to identify a plan that could work, that would not only provide the capacity that they need in order to stay afloat, but also to make sure that it meets all of our public safety concerns as well as our ADA requirements.
Thank you. And then just the last question is about parking. And every time that we eliminate parking in the coastal zone, we have to go through the approval with Coastal Commission. So how are we going to have that ability predetermined that they're good with us closing off parking and repurposing it as dining? Or are we going to have to go through every single time and every encroachment permit to get that approval?
So we do have preliminary approval from Coastal Commission regarding our Share Street program and other plans that ideas and concepts that we suggested to Coastal, including lane closures, street closures, parking closures. So we do have concurrence from Coastal Commission on those ideas. We are going to submit a temporary waiver to Coastal Commission, but right now we don't want to submit anything until we have a bigger understanding of the magnitude of areas that we need to include in that, because we want to submit one comprehensive waiver to Coastal Commission. But we do have preliminary approval from Coastal to close, to occupy parking spaces as well as lane closures, consistent with our shared street program.
Okay, thank you very much, Roy.
Councilmember Kranz.
I'm glad to see I appreciate the effort to get this emergency meeting scheduled, special meeting, whatever it's called, because I see that many business owners are in survival mode and they are operating in a way that is somewhat rogue because they are desperate to be able to comply with the health order that just recently was changed again to make them not allowed to serve indoors. So it is important that we catch up and do our best to inform as many people as possible of these new rules and these new opportunities. So one of the complaints that I've heard is that we're not doing enough outreach, and I have no idea the amount of outreach that we've done. That I'd be interested in learning a little bit more about that, because perhaps there are resources that we can bring to bear on that so that we have more people out meeting with more business owners, asking how and what the city can do to increase their chances of survival. So that's one thing that I would like to get some input from the city manager on. The other thing that I think we should seriously consider doing is aggressively marketing the city should implement a valet parking program that could use E and D streets to allow people to get out of their cars quicker and not have to drive around looking for parking spots. And we could use City Hall parking lot. We could use NCTD parking lots. We'd obviously have to talk to NCTD about that, but these are the sort of things that people are having to make adjustments, and change is hard. So I would like to facilitate change in any way that we can. And, so I know that there are ways that we could be more efficient with automobile movements in downtown. And especially now that we're constricting lanes, we need to be creative in ways that we can entice people out of their cars. So I know it's not on the agenda today. I do appreciate what is on the agenda, and I will be supporting it. But in the meantime, we need to continue to put our thinking hats on, and collaborating with these businesses to find out what it is that they think will be necessary in order to keep them open and dealing with business in this pandemic.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Mosca.
Madam Mayor, if you don't mind, it looks like one of my points was similar to Councilmember Kranz, and it looks like our acting city manager had her hand up, so maybe she can address Councilmember Kranz's question.
Okay. Are you able to speak, or Rose Room? Let me see. I will unmute you. Are you self-muted there?
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, good. Okay, fantastic. Thank you. So I wanted to just go ahead and address some of Councilmember Krantz concerns. So one of the things that we do is obviously we have some business organizations, Encinitas 101, Cardiff 101, Leucadia 101 in the chamber. We have been working extensively with them to get the business initiatives that council has approved throughout the last couple weeks and months through COVID. We put out a press release, as well as it was in the city manager's newsletter. What we do plan on doing is we actually do plan on sending folks out to businesses with the applications to streamline this process and to go ahead and implement them as soon as possible. We will continue to work with our local business organizations to make sure that that word gets out. We'll also make sure that we e-blast it. We do social media. We reach out to the other different business organizations. So we will definitely get the word out. We actually did that this week quite extensively with some of our media. We do understand it's not necessarily reaching everyone, but we will do that effort, and we will actually personally be going out to businesses to actually walk them through the process, get them through it, and to move this along as quickly as possible as well. The other thought would be, as Councilmember Krantz did bring up, don't forget that we do own Pacific View. That site has been used for event parking, actually for valet. You can park a lot of cars in there. So depending on different ideas we come up with, we do actually have a city-owned building in that area that could be used for additional parking.
Excellent, excellent, great ideas. And I think the item today and everything that you've done in the past, it's thinking outside the box, is being creative and trying to help all of our businesses in this tough time. And so I appreciate the hard work of our city staff. My questions were similar to the deputy mayor's, and so I'm not going to ask those questions again. But I think one thing I would point out, which is kind of the buzzwords that have already been used, which is this streamlining of things, making sure that we're making the process as easy as possible. Understanding our businesses, they know how to run their businesses, right? They don't know how to operate within our process, and so we need to make it as easy and as straightforward as possible. What we've done in downtown, if we can't do it for the rest of the corridor, what we're doing in terms of working with individual businesses, it should be made as easy, as straightforward as possible. The buzzword being streamlined. We don't want to, have them jumping through all kinds of hoops to do what they need to be doing. We know that it's difficult. I mean, even before the governor's recent order, we've been doing a lot to try to get to that pre-COVID capacity for a lot of these businesses. And now it's kind of decreased even more for them. So it's important that we focus on this and that we're as creative as possible, public spaces, private spaces, everything that we've been thinking about, and that these are temporary measures. But I think, and the other thing that I think is important, which Councilmember Kranz has been hitting on, and I've hit on in the past, and people have been talking about, even though we are doing so many things, folks are, they're focused on their summertime vacation. They're focused on, you know, whether their kids are going back to school. They're focused on sports in the summertime. They don't know what we're doing. And so we need to be much more strategic about how we're reaching out to folks. Not that we're not doing outreach now, but we need to just do even more to make the process that, you know, our staff is amazing, and we know that they can go out and do, you know, think creatively and put in place all these things. But it's important that the public knows that we're doing this as well, and that everybody's, that people are, you know, in the know in terms of knowing what we're doing to support our local businesses, because they're very important. But also part of that outreach is listening to our businesses and understanding what they need from us to help them get to that pre-COVID capacity, or help them clear some of the hurdles. So I think that's important, you know, streamlining and making it as public as possible, so that people know what we're doing. And we are focused on helping our local businesses during this tough time. And so those are my comments, and I'm going to move the resolution now because I feel so strongly about it. So I'll move the staff's recommendation with regard to this resolution.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. I just had a couple other questions. So are we receiving requests from the businesses on El Camino Real? Are we helping them? Because we don't have, there are more restaurants, or there are more businesses on that corridor than anywhere else in the city. And we don't have a 101 that covers them. We do have the chamber, but I don't know if, can you just address that?
I've gotten people emailing me, and I've sent it on to city staff. And I think it's different in terms of losing parking, because we have a ton of, we have several big parking lots out there that aren't being utilized to full capacity. So I'm hoping that as those folks are being moved off to city staff, like Craftsman and others that want to utilize their parking lot, that we're working with them on streamlining the ability to serve alcohol in the public or private lot that they have there, to be able to expand their business into some of those parking lots in a way that makes sense and works for everybody.
Right. So Roy or someone on staff, could you address that?
Sure. As Councilmember Mosca indicated, that we did receive a few requests, but not as many as 101. But we will, with the outreach that's being directed here and working with the city manager, we will outreach to all of our businesses, including those out in El Camino Real, to inform them of this process. So even though what's before you tonight or today is the alcohol in a public right of way, we currently have that temporary use permit process that allows businesses and restaurants to expand onto private parking areas to utilize for outdoor dining. And that's been in place for some time now. But we will revisit that and include in all of our outreach moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem as if the El Camino Real businesses would be well positioned to move outside, because the parking lots are, obviously traffic is just not going nearly as fast or as high volume. So you can just envision it taking over some portion of a parking lot and it being a really pleasant place out there. So I'm hopeful that we're encouraging that, and that they do feel connected to the city and able to ask for what they need. I mean, my other question is just, you know, City Hall's supposed to be closed today, and then tomorrow, and then Sunday. So when we're getting these emails that say like, please help, we're about to die if we don't open up tonight, tomorrow, who on staff, and this is maybe a question for the city manager, I mean, how should we be directing people so that they can get immediate response from the city, especially during these three-day closures?
Yes, and also, Madam Mayor, I do want to let you know, going back to El Camino Real, we are working with the chamber, because that's technically been kind of more their area. Well, obviously, as you know, we do still have the one-stop shop open on every Friday. So technically, we do still have City Hall open every Friday. And because the one-stop shop is located in Development Services, that's where these permits are actually processed and approved. You know, we don't yet have folks working on the weekend. Since the restriction just was put in place on Tuesday, and with this approval, I will work with Lillian, Development Services Director, to see what we can do about trying to maybe provide some weekend services until this gets going. but we obviously haven't discussed that yet. With this approval, we will be back. We will still be in the office today, so people can still contact the Development Services Department, and Roy's shaking his head. So we technically are open 5 days a week. But then we can work to, get all these processed as soon as we can. And then we can see if maybe we can open up a couple hours on a weekend or something if we have to process that. I see Lillian shaking her head, so we'll work on that plan.
Okay.
And if we, to the mayor's point, if we have like a, kind of a point person, I can't say that word, but like a point person on staff, instead of me blowing up Mark's box or somebody else's box, I can send it all to that one person.
Yeah.
So let us know.
Yeah.
Exactly. If through the Madam Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
If Lillian's okay with it, I would suggest to have Garrett Smith be the main contact person. Just for your edification, he and I have been working today to get out some of the permits that we currently have. So we are looking to issue a few permits today. And if you receive any other ones, please forward it to Garrett. And he's currently at the office as he's working today.
And Madam Mayor, we actually did too, when we opened up the shared streets the week of 4th of July, we actually had a staff member specifically working on July 3rd, even though it was the observed holiday, to process permits for the shared streets. So we are doing that.
Okay, good. And then my other question is there any authority that we need to give to you or the head of the EOC, Emergency Operations Center, so that you can make these decisions? We're in a recess for July, and I did notice that the city of San Diego, which has a strong mayor system, obviously quite different, but issued an executive order, and then that had to go back to the legislative body of the city council whenever they had their next meeting. And I'd like to have our EOC be able, which is you and the team, be able to make a decision like about this alcohol serving in the right of way, because it's completely in line with the policy direction that we have given about wanting to help our small businesses. So if anything like this comes up in the future, like for example, if there are other categories that end up being closed, like I don't know, if churches or retail shops and they can only operate outside, and we haven't given that explicit authority that you are allowed to make that decision and then take it back to the legislative body at the next meeting.
Yeah, no, we can certainly do that. I think that a little bit of the difference on this one, Madam Mayor, was the fact that we actually had a resolution prohibiting something. So it was a little bit different. If we didn't have that, I think as Emergency Operations Director, I would have felt more comfortable making that decision. So definitely depending on what comes out, if we obviously don't have a resolution or ordinance, or it's just something that we have flexibility on, I don't have a problem making those decisions.
Okay. Yeah, because we had talked about alcohol at a previous meeting where Tony had brought it up, like having a beer outside with your meal. But we had kind of left it status quo in place, that it was prohibited. So, but we could have foreseen this in a way, so I just want to make sure that we're really positioning ourselves to be most responsive. I mean, it worked out great that we could have this meeting and that everybody's able to attend and all that, but I just worry that we're, let's just be forward looking here on the reality that more things might close down. So how can we be positioned to help any groups that are closing that we need to with our public right of way and our permitting? So let me call on Council Member Jody Hubbard.
Okay, I just have one question since I'm a little late to the party here. Alcohol stops serving outside at what time?
At 10 p.m.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure of that. And other than that, I'm totally on board with everything every other council member said here. And anything we can do to make things happen faster, even if it's, here's your temporary permit while we give you the formal paperwork, because if it takes a week might be too long. So yeah, anything we can do to speed stuff up.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. So let's go ahead and vote on that.
Okay, Councilmember Hubbard,
Yes.
Councilmember Krantz,
Yes.
Councilmember Mosca,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Hinsey,
Yes.
and Mayor Blakespear.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay. So should we move right into closed session?
So
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna close out the, go ahead and make your announcement for closed session. And then
Okay.
when you adjourn to closed session, then we'll close this all out and then you'll be doing your closed session via Zoom.
Okay, but just to confirm, so our closed session link is in our calendar. So if we go to that and Councilmember Hubbard, if you don't have that, maybe I
We'll have
can,
Rashid send everything right back out to you.
okay.
Is
So
that
we're
how?
gonna go straight to it. We're not waiting till 1:30. We're gonna start
No,
right.
we're going, everything's been agendized on one agenda, so we can move right into closed session right now. Go ahead and make your announcement. And then
Okay,
when you adjourn, we'll close this meeting out.
okay. So closed session item is Public Employee Employment
Okay, hold on.
Authority under Government Code Section 54957, and it's for city manager. So with that,
No comments?
we will adjourn to closed. There are no public comments, right?
Correct. And then Mayor Blaisberg, can you just keep track of when you end closed session and let me know?
Yes, I will.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Wait, so sorry, City Clerk.
Yes,
So we will not be coming back into open session at the end. We will report out at the next meeting.
correct.
Okay, thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.